My name is Joseph Edward Smith. I'm 80 years old. I spent 38 years working as a librarian. I never earned a huge salary, but I built a life and a portfolio that most people think you need to be a CEO to have. But I spent 60 years not knowing something that changed everything when I finally found out. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I spent decades worrying about the wrong things. I prioritized the wrong things. And unfortunately, it took me about 60 years to learn the 6 things that I am going to share with you right now. Let me tell you what happened. The first thing I had to learn was to stop pretending. You see, when I was a young man working at the Utica Public Library, I felt like I had to prove I was smart. I wanted people to think I knew everything. I would nod along when patrons talked about books I had never read. I would pretend I understood complex financial terms before I actually did. I wasted so much energy trying to be somebody I was not. I wanted to look like the wealthy men who came in to read the Wall Street Journal. Honestly, I was scared. I was scared that if people saw my weaknesses, they would not respect me. But here is the truth. We just need to be comfortable with who we are. We have to accept our strengths and our weaknesses. I had to learn to embrace my quiet personality. I am an introvert. I like routine. I like reading. I do not like loud parties. For a long time, I thought that was a flaw. I finally realized that there are going to be people who love our quirky personalities, and there are going to be people who do not, and that is fine. There are plenty of people who are going to vibe with us. Once I stopped pretending, my life became very peaceful. I stopped wasting my time trying to impress strangers. And here's what I didn't understand then. That need to impress people leads directly into the second thing I learned. This second lesson can get quite expensive if you do not cut it out sooner rather than later. Having spent decades watching people manage their money, and having built my own wealth from a modest public salary, I can tell you this is the #1 thing that ruins people's lives. It destroys their ability to retire at 65, or even sooner. You have to stop keeping up with the Joneses. Let me explain. There is this constant need to have an image. You see your neighbor buy a nice car, and suddenly you want a nicer car. You already have a perfectly good car sitting in your driveway, but suddenly it feels old. Or your neighbor moves to a different neighborhood down the street, just to get his kids into a slightly better school. All of a sudden, you want the exact same thing. Catherine and I lived in a modest house in Highland Park. We saw our friends upgrading their homes. We saw them taking out massive loans. I felt the pressure. I really did. I wondered if I was failing my family by staying in our simple house. But I realized something important. These are all fine things to want if it is what you genuinely want. But if we are doing it just because we want to keep up with the Joneses, it gets expensive very quickly. I watched friends drown in debt because they wanted to look rich. I drove an old car until it completely died. I wore the same corduroy jackets for years. I found that buying things to impress other people did not bring me joy. It just brought me stress. Which brings me to the third item on my list. Stuff does not bring me joy. You know what surprised me most? I thought that when I finally had money, I would want to buy a lot of things. But I don't. What brings me joy is relationships and experiences. When I retired, Catherine and I started traveling. We started spending time in Florence, Italy. We spend our summers at a lake house in the Adirondacks. I am sitting in my studio right now, looking out the window, and I am having a great time. I get to paint. I get to talk to my grandchildren. I get to cook dinner with my wife. This brings me a lot more joy than any item I could ever buy. I do not care how much stuff comes in those cardboard boxes on the front porch. The stuff does not bring us joy. In fact, I am at a phase in my life now where I want less stuff. I suspect many of you are at this phase as well. I do not want a massive mansion to clean. I do not want a fancy sports car that costs a fortune to fix. I do not want anything that can break and cause me a headache. I want to simplify my life completely. I want to focus on spending the time I have left doing things that matter. Hopefully, I have another 10 or 20 years left. I want to focus that time on doing things that bring joy to me and bring joy to the people that I love. It is all connected to not keeping up with the Joneses and not pretending. So much of the stuff we chase when we are younger is just to impress other people. Even when Catherine and I travel, we keep it to ourselves. A lot of people today post their entire lives on Instagram or Facebook. They want everyone to know they are on vacation in Costa Rica or Italy. You know how many images I post on the internet when I am traveling? 0. I may eventually show a photo to my son Marcus or my daughter Lydia when I get home. But frankly, it is a security risk to broadcast to the world that you are not at home. Having more stuff and bragging about that stuff is no longer a positive for me. The biggest badge of honor that I have is my family. My badge of honor is being able to help out the people I care about. I am talking about my true daughters, my immediate family, my grandchildren. I want to be there for them. That is my wealth. But there is another badge of honor I had to learn about, and this is the fourth thing: taking care of my health. I didn't know it at the time, but health is the one thing you cannot buy back. It is so easy to postpone taking care of yourself. Whether it is mental health or physical health, we always think we have more time. Frankly, I am better at doing things to protect my physical health than my mental health. I know people who have great mental routines. They do a pre-bedtime routine. They do a shutdown routine. They write in a gratitude journal. I started doing some of that. I have kept a journal for 41 years. It keeps my mind sharp. But when it comes to physical fitness, it is the exact same thing. We can postpone it for a day or two. We say we are too busy to exercise. We can postpone it for a week or two. But if we postpone it for too long, it ends up having a long-term impact on us. We are likely going to regret it later in our lives. I watched friends ignore their health to work longer hours. Now they have money, but they cannot walk around the block. I do not want to regret that. I want to squeeze all the juice out of every single day that God is going to give me here on this earth. I want to have as many adventures as I can. I want to play chess. I want to do my Tai Chi in the garden. I want to walk through Saratoga Springs. To do any of that, I need my health. My health is much more important than my wealth. I am trying to optimize my life for enjoyment. I am trying to optimize for adventure. I am trying to optimize for relationships. And I am trying to optimize for my health. That is the next big lesson I had to learn the hard way. It is super easy to say, I am going to sacrifice for just this one chapter of my life. When we are younger, we do this all the time. Let me break this down because this is the fifth thing you need to understand. Think about the 3 core resources that all of us struggle to balance. They are limited resources. They are our time, our health, and our money. When we are younger, in our 20s and 30s, we do not have a lot of money. But we usually have a lot of time, and we have a lot of health. So we can trade some of our time, and we can trade some of our health to get money. We work long shifts. We commute in terrible traffic. We sleep poorly. We invest heavily in our careers early on because it is going to have a 20, 30, or 40-year payback period for us. That can be a really good investment when you are young. I worked late at the library. I bought real estate and fixed up the apartments on the weekends instead of resting. I traded my time and my energy for financial security. But at my age now, at 80 years old, the math is completely different. I am financially independent now. My investments pay me more in a month than I used to make in a year. For me to sacrifice my time or my health to get more money right now would be incredibly foolish. It makes no sense. The thing that is very limited for me now is time. I have a lot less time ahead of me than I do behind me. But I still have to sacrifice some of that time in order to stay healthy. I could easily just sit in my armchair all day. It is a lot easier to just sit on the porch, drink a glass of wine, and watch the sunset. And I get to do that. I enjoy doing that. But I also make sure that I take time out of every single day to invest in my physical body. I practice Tai Chi every morning. I go for walks. I lift light weights to keep my bones strong. Those are my core daily requirements. I trade a little bit of my remaining time to maintain my health so I can enjoy my money and my family. This brings me to the sixth thing. This is going to sound very strange coming from a man who spent his entire life saving money. I spent 50 years being careful with every single dollar. But it is incredibly important. You have to switch from being a saver to being a spender. We spend so much of our lives sacrificing today for a better tomorrow financially. We work very hard. We get up early. We deal with the stress of our jobs. We have a lot of heavy responsibilities on our shoulders. We put money aside into pensions, into index funds, into real estate. We deny ourselves immediate pleasures so we can be safe later. And it is important that all those sacrifices we made actually result in us enjoying life more. That is what I want for you. I want you to manage your health and squeeze all the juice out of your senior years. But I also want you to squeeze all the joy that you can out of the money that you saved. What was the point of all that saving if you are going to die with millions of dollars while living like you are broke? Frankly, it is very hard to transition from being a saver to a spender. My brain was wired to save. Every time I looked at a price tag, my first thought was always how much that money would grow to if I invested it instead. I had to learn to turn that off. It is super important that we think about this ahead of time. Because if we wait until the very day we retire and say, okay, now I am going to be comfortable spending money, it will not work. I can tell you from personal experience and from watching my friends, that is not how it works. It is like anything else in life. Spending money without guilt is a muscle. We have to flex that muscle. We have to work out that muscle. We have to train ourselves to let go of the scarcity mindset. Starting that mental shift sooner rather than later is important. You have to learn how to open your wallet and buy the plane ticket. You have to learn how to pay for the nice dinner and not feel sick about the bill. You earned it. You built the foundation. Now you have to actually live in the house you built. That transition is exactly why I made another video for you. There are specific habits you need to break before you retire so you can actually enjoy your money. I put together a list of 8 things you need to stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy your journey into retirement. That includes learning exactly how to start spending more money without feeling terrified. I want you to go watch that video right now so you can start practicing these changes today. I'll see you in that video. Thanks for listening to this one. Take care.